you should be taking an informed decision that you actually want to study law. This is not a decision that you should take it in a flippant manner, because a lot of young people at the high school level, I'm afraid, are simply not in a position to make these judgments effectively. Consulting firms, they hire lawyers. Accounting firms, the big four including, they regularly hire lawyers as well. So there has been an expansion of the profession of law, where role of lawyers is not only limited here. Besides these aspects of law, today there are lawyers, law graduates who work for non-governmental organizations. They work at think tanks, they work at research institutions, they work for the United Nations and other such organizations, including international and intergovernmental organizations. They also end up becoming an entrepreneur. And there are a lot of people who have studied law, and some of our own graduates have become entrepreneurs, and I ask them that, has the study of law helped? And they say absolutely.
Hello and welcome to Raj Speaks, a new series on Legally Talking, where we're going to focus on various issues that Professor Dr. Raj Kumar is going to speak. Now, who is Professor Dr. Raj Kumar? Many of you know him. He is the Dean of Jindal Global Law School and the Vice Chancellor of Jindal Global University. And today we have a very interesting topic, which is why choose law. A lot of students have different ideas of choosing law. A lot of people aspire to become someone like Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi, or many judges that they admire. A lot of other people are sort of enamored by the kind of salaries that tier 1 law firms pay in the very first year of the profession. But what is this profession really about? Is it a ticket to a job, or to become someone like Dr. Abhishek Singhvi or Senior Advocate Mukul Rohatgi or a judge of the Supreme Court? Or is it a lot more than that? This is what we're going to focus on, and we have the best man to speak with us. I want to welcome Professor Dr. Raj Kumar. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you, Tarun?
And welcome to Raj Speaks.
Thank you, Tarun. Yeah.
At the outset, my question to you, which is in 3 words, why choose law?
So, Tarun, I think it's a great question, because this dominates the mind of so many young people. But I think it's important to say that this question has become more and more interesting and important in recent times, because for a very long time in our country, law was not chosen as a preferred study option at all. In fact, much of the career aspiration for Indian students was confined to medicine and engineering and even other disciplines broadly in the areas of STEM. And at least when I decided to study law in the 1990s, and for many years even before, it was not considered as a preferred choice at all. The brightest of our Indian students never considered studying law, and those who probably did not get anything better ended up actually studying law. And this dominated for many years. And that's actually a paradox in a way for India, because quite remarkably, the leaders of the Indian freedom movement happened to be lawyers. Mahatma Gandhi was a lawyer, Dr. Ambedkar was a lawyer, Sardar Patel was a lawyer, we of course had Pandit Nehru was a lawyer. In many ways, lawyers laid the foundations of the freedom movement and laid the founding vision through the Constitution of India, and then they built the Republic as well. So for a country which was created and essentially established its foundations through the role of lawyers, it's quite extraordinary that law was not seen as a preferred study option for very many decades. Till the late 80s, with the start of the 5-year law programs and the national law schools, law was not something that was preferred. Of course, there were great law faculties even before the National Law School, including my own alma mater, the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. There were other institutions in Lucknow and Allahabad and other parts of India in large public universities. But the professionalization of the study of law through the 5-year law program was a tectonic shift from where it used to be. So in many ways, to answer the question, why choose law, we need to recognize the history and the context of how legal education has evolved. But to specifically answer your question, why choose law? I mean, a lot of people choose law for very many reasons. But I personally think one of the reasons why you should choose law is that if you are deeply concerned about the state of justice, if you believe in the idea of the rule of law, if you believe in the fact that law can essentially empower people and in helping them achieve justice, that's why, and that's one of the reasons why you should choose law. You raised another interesting aspect of the law itself, which is that the legal careers and to what extent financial motives also make informed choices among young people. This is relatively a recent phenomenon. I think historically, most people who ended up studying law, let's say if it was a matter of choice for them, they were concerned in advancing the cause of justice. That was the dominant thought process. But both globalization and the expansion of the private sector in India has created a unique set of opportunities for lawyers. So there are people who end up choosing law to enter into the corporate legal world, including law firms, investment banks, consulting firms, and today accounting firms. Many of them have a role for lawyers too. And if you choose to go into litigation, you end up becoming, these great lawyers whose name mentioned. But listen, regardless of whichever path you choose, it's one thing you should be very clear. It's a demanding area of study and indeed a demanding profession. So in conclusion, I will say that you want to choose law if you're convinced about the fact that you want to be part of an effort to help people, if you want to be part of an effort to somewhat advance the cause of justice, if you want to be part of an effort to build a rule of law culture, if you want to be able to strengthen our democratic institutions so that the faith of the ordinary people in the rule of law is maintained. You want to study and choose law if you believe in the ideals of the Constitution. Along with it, there are very many other reasons why you will end up choosing law, but these are fundamental and foundational reasons why you should choose to study law.
Very interesting. This brings me to my next question. What is there in a life beyond litigation? A lot of law students want to become senior advocates like Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi or senior advocate Mukul Rohtgi. But of course, there is yet another category who want to join Tier A or Tier 1 law firms. But it's not because, this is a very, very small bracket of people. But thousands and I think lakhs of students are studying law. What are they doing? What can they do? Why should they choose law? And where all is it applicable? See, because we see lawyers who have become CEOs of companies. Case in point would be somebody who was heading Indigo was a lawyer. Then he joined Akasa. He's a lawyer. So a lot of people in different roles we see who have a background in law.
Yeah.
A lot of students may not know. Could you share what all you could end up doing?
Absolutely. So one of the remarkable things about the study of law, which I tell my students, is that unlike many other study areas, law helps you to develop a unique set of knowledge, expertise and skill sets that are transferable to a range of professional opportunities that come with the study of law. For example, what does really law do, or rather study of law does to a person? It develops an analytical mind, and that's a very important aspect of it. Second, it helps you to develop critical thinking, another important skill set that is transferable. Third, it helps you to address complexity. We are increasingly living in a very complex world where we need to make informed choices and decisions. Study of law helps you to do that. Fourth, study of law helps you to appreciate fairness. What constitutes fairness and how do we navigate when it comes to achieving that sense of fairness. And the last bit I think is very important is that the study of law in the right way helps you to empower society. And ultimately, these qualities that the study of law enables you to have will create opportunities. But frankly speaking, Tarun, this possibility to do so many other things out of law is a relatively recent phenomenon. Even 3 decades ago, most students who studied law in India were confined to largely the litigating bar. In fact, the idea of study of law was inextricably connected to the fact that they will end up practicing in a court of law. Mostly they end up practicing in their own states or in the nearby districts and things like that. The possibility to move beyond those aspects of the locality were lesser, and let alone possibilities to do many other things in law was simply not there. But today, and you rightly said, if you study law, you can of course become a lawyer and practice in a court of law, which could be the district courts, the high court, and then ultimately even the Supreme Court. But you don't need to do that at all. You can end up becoming a transactional lawyer, work at corporate law firms and end up practicing there. The third you can do is you can actually become an in-house counsel for a major corporation. This is something that didn't exist 3 decades ago. Most big corporations will engage litigating lawyers as their main lawyer, and they didn't have an in-house counsel team. They can do that. Fourth aspect, something that has developed more recently, is that the peripheral aspects of other professional organizations, including consulting firms, they hire lawyers. Accounting firms, the big four including, they regularly hire lawyers as well. So there has been an expansion of the profession of law, where role of lawyers is not only limited here. Besides these aspects of law, today there are lawyers, law graduates who work for non-governmental organizations. They work at think tanks, they work at research institutions, they work for the United Nations and other such organizations, including international and intergovernmental organizations. They also end up becoming an entrepreneur. And there are a lot of people who have studied law, and some of our own graduates have become entrepreneurs, and I ask them that has the study of law helped, and they say absolutely, because the skill sets and the qualities that I talked about early on, that also has enabled. And the last thing which I am personally passionate about is that today, more than ever before, many law graduates are considering becoming an academic. Our own law school and university, if I look at the law school, there are more than 500 professors who teach in our law school. And so this has also created a new imagination for young law graduates to aspire to. In addition to the legal profession in all its forms and manifestations, they can also look at legal academia.
Very interesting that you shared that with us, but could you also tell us, you say join a law school, but a lot of students are worried, will this law school develop my skills? What skills should a law firm develop in a student?
You mean the law school?
Law school,
yeah.
Because students are concerned that will I be taught things that will make me future ready?
Yes.
Otherwise, they'll go through the whole course, and then the uncertainty comes. What skills a law should develop?
Yes. So the first and foremost skill sets that an institution should provide for is that how does a student develop an analytical mind? This analytical mind is ended up being taught through innovative teaching pedagogies in classroom that spread across courses, through discussions and debates that happen in the classroom, so that the students are not only being taught from a one-way learning standpoint, where the knowledge giver, which is the professor, is just sharing that knowledge, but through participative and dialogic exercises with the students. The second thing, which is a very important aspect, is that they need to be challenged in terms of their viewpoints and perspectives. One of the remarkable things about a good university, and indeed a good law school, is that when we come into a law school, when we come into university, we end up having a lot of, say, views, prejudices, biases, opinions, perspectives through our own past set of lived experiences. The moment you come into a university, especially a vibrant law school, you get challenged. You are constantly, challenged about various issues. You might end up having certain beliefs about equality, and then you end up being challenged that. You may have some issues about justice, and you thought what was justice, and that get challenged. You may have certain issues about even issues ranging from adoption to LGBTQ issues, to aspects that are debatable in any society and evolutionary as well. What a good law school does is it helps you to develop that critical mind, that spirit of inquiry. The third aspect of the skill sets that the law school ought to develop is that to embrace and appreciate complexity. There are no easy answers for complex issues. The trivialization of complexity through at times public discourse which are not mature enough, those things get challenged, and a good law student is able to develop a more appreciative view about complexity, and in that process is able to listen to multiple views and perspectives as they develop their own informed judgment. The fourth aspect of the skill set that a good law school ought to develop is that to develop nuanced approaches towards decision making and processes. Today we are somewhat disappointed at times when public debates do not appreciate nuanced engagement. We end up making sweeping statements and sweeping judgments about issues. A good law school, a good legal education ought to develop this particular approach towards not only hearing the other side but also the multiple sides, but more importantly to encourage students to have more evidence-based knowledge and have nuanced approach towards an informed decision making, informed engagement. And the other skill set that a good law school ought to teach is that to develop a voracious sense of reading. One of the things that we don't do enough in our society is that we need to actually encourage students to have a wider understanding of law beyond law itself. I mean, it will be tragic to see our law students focusing far too much in law and legal subjects alone, when we know that the world in which they will operate, they will work, is based upon social, political and economic context. And hence, I believe very strongly that law students and legal education ought to have a very strong foundation in liberal arts, humanities, social sciences. Law students ought to be studying philosophy and political science and history and literature and anthropology and sociology and economics, just as it is important for them to study law. In many ways, they need to be having an interdisciplinary, a multidisciplinary and holistic education for them to be prepared to become a well-rounded lawyer. And that is the kind of skill sets and knowledge that a good law school ought to impart to our students.
One of the last questions, because many of these students join law at a very impressionable age when they are just 18. Any advice to parents? Because all these deliberations do happen with parents when they are applying to their entrance tests. Any advice to parents?
So this is a great question, Tarun. I think it's a very important debate also. Every year we have many students and parents ask the question whether they should study the 5-year law program or the 3-year law program. Now, what is the difference? Well, the 5-year law program students are the ones who come into a law school and pursue a 5-year integrated law program after their high school education, after what we call in India the 12th standard. But the 3-year LLB students are the ones who come into law school to pursue law after they have completed an undergraduate degree in any discipline. It so happens that we have one of those law schools which has both the programs, but there are law schools in the country which has one of them, and so the choice is always a matter that some people debate. My own view is that it almost does not matter which program you choose, depending upon which stage of life you are making the choice. So if you are a high school student looking at and are convinced about the study of law, you may make the choice and end up studying in a 5-year law program. If you didn't do that before, and if you're doing an undergraduate degree in another discipline and somewhere there you decided that you want to study law, you can do the 3-year law program. But what is more important is that if you choose to do the 5-year law program after your high school, you should be taking an informed decision that you actually want to study law. This is not a decision that you should take it in a flippant manner, because a lot of young people at the high school level, I'm afraid, are simply not in a position to make these judgments effectively. They simply are not yet aware of the context of what is it that they really want to do. And this is not something that I'm saying it in a negative manner. It is just the way many people evolve over time in terms of what they really want to do. I mean, in our own friend circles, we would have met people who, like, maybe in 7th grade, they decided they want to be a doctor or an engineer or a chartered accountant or a media person, and spend the entire years, planning to end up becoming. And then there are others who were not sure what they want to, and they make those choices much later in life. My point is, since the 5-year law student is making the choice at high school level, they better be more convinced that this is what they really want to do. If you are not sure about it, I would recommend that you should not make the choice at that time, because we also see across India a higher level of attrition as well as, let's say, lack of interest or even inclination to pursue law, because a 5-year commitment after high school is a huge commitment, and if you're not prepared for it, don't make it. I am not suggesting that they will not end up studying law. They should end up pursuing a broader humanities, social sciences, or business or other types of degrees to start with, which will give them a good rounding in the world of education, and somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd year of their journey in the undergraduate institution, they can choose to study law and join a 3-year LLB program. Both those programs afford amazing opportunities to become a lawyer in the future or a judge in the future.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, for sharing your views with us on the topic that we chose today, which is why choose law. So here was Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, who shared with us, and also in a sense, this is a short guide for law students who want to choose a career in the field of law. And this is the first episode of Raj Speaks. I enjoyed talking to Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, and we shall be back with another topic soon. Until then, you tune into Legally Talking. Look forward to see you. Thank you.